In the cockpit,
Speed!
a crisis hits.
I've got control. Oh, God! Go around!
How much fuel have we used?
Flight engineer Gilles Jardinot keeps a vigilant eye on fuel consumption.
We've got 800 kilos.
Concorde burns through it at an astonishing rate. In the short taxi to the runway, the plane's 4 engines have already used as much fuel as the average car uses in 6 months. Booking a seat on the famed jet requires deep pockets. The return fare to New York costs more than $9,000.
It was not something unaffordable for those people we had on board. Some of them, I tell you, they didn't even know how much they were paying.
Air France 4590, runway 26 right, clear for takeoff.
4590, cleared for takeoff. 26 right.
The tower controller today is Gilles Longelin.
I was stationed in the southern control tower, which has a very good view over the 2 runways that we use. This day was the same as usual. I gave him the takeoff clearance.
The first officer tells the captain they've reached V1, or decision speed. They're now going too quickly to abort the takeoff.
You cannot stop anymore. You have to go on. You have to continue takeoff, whatever happens.
Watch out!
Suddenly, the plane begins veering left. The flight engineer urges the captain to abort the takeoff, but it's too late to stop. Captain Marty lifts the supersonic jet into the air. Gilles Longelin realizes he's now watching a disaster.
It was a very unexpected situation to see flames on an aircraft that is departing on the runway. You don't have time to lose, so immediately I've pushed the red button, which is a button for alert.
4590, you have flames behind you.
Roger!
The plane is engulfed in flames.
Failure, engine 2.
Engine fire procedure.
Captain Marty struggles for control as the engineer shuts down the burning engine and activates a fire extinguisher.
What's the airspeed?
The plane's airspeed is now dangerously low.
The airspeed.
Something is happening. Some things that is not covered by training. Something that in pilot career you don't want to face.
First Officer Marceau wants to head for a nearby airport.
Le Bourget!
But the crew can't outfly the fire that is rapidly consuming their plane. The supersonic marvel of modern aviation.
No!
Slams into an airport hotel.
Oh mon Dieu.
I could see kind of big, like a big mushroom of smoke. I think into the very last moments where I was thinking that something will save the situation.
Sunjet 282, proceed directly to runway, backtrack and hold.
Los Rodeos Airport on the Spanish island of Tenerife is busier than it's ever been.
BA 783, hold short of the runway and stand by for taxi clearance.
With so many planes parked in the taxiways, the controllers instruct departing flights to taxi along the airport's only runway to get into position for takeoff. One of the planes waiting to get to Las Palmas is Pan Am Flight 1736. The Pan Am crew is ready to get back in the air, but they can't taxi to the runway. A KLM 747 has stopped in front of them to refuel.
Tenerife KLM 4805, you finished refueling, requesting clearance for startup.
He said, follow KLM down a runway, backtrack, make an exit to get around back of KLM. So that's what we were doing.
First Officer Bragg is unfamiliar with the airport. He checks a runway diagram to help find their turn.
Okay, that's this one right here.
Goes ahead. It's going to put us on the taxiway.
As they taxi, they listen to the tower controller tell the KLM crew ahead of them what to do after departure.
You are clear to the Papa Beacon. Climb to and maintain flight level 90. Right turn after takeoff.
Roger, clear to the Papa Beacon. Flight level 90, right turn out. We are now at takeoff.
Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you.
And we're still taxiing down
The runway, Clipper 1736.
Papa Alpha 1736, report runway clear.
Okay, we'll report when we're clear.
Thank you.
The Pan Am crew will be turning off the runway in just a few more yards. But now something's wrong. First Officer Bragg can see a plane through the fog.
I think he's moving.
Look at him. That idiot's coming.
Saw KLM too.
Get off. Get off!
Captain Grubbs tries to steer clear of the oncoming KLM. But it's bearing down on them at nearly 200 miles an hour.
He had lifted off the runway. I could see his rotating beacon underneath.
Get off, get off, get off! Get off, get off, get off!
And then I ducked and set a real quick prayer, trying to hope he misses us.
The commuter flight from Belfast, Northern Ireland, was supposed to land in Cork at 9 a.m.
Maybe Kerry.
30 minutes later, it's still circling the airport.
Cork faces out to the Atlantic, so fog is very common, and fog will roll in and it will roll out, sometimes at no notice.
In our part of the world, we have a saying, it was like pea soup, because it was very, very thick.
Hope we land soon. I've got work to do.
There are 10 passengers waiting to land this morning, including Lawrence Wilson, traveling to Cork for the day on business.
I was going to Cork to do forklift truck training. I had been in that same location doing the same course several times before, so it was sort of really old hat to go down. I've done it before.
Today's flight is aboard a Fairchild Metro 3. Flying the plane today is First Officer Andrew Cantle of England. While he concentrates on circling over Cork, Spanish Captain Jordi Sola Lopez is checking the weather at nearby airports.
Surface wind is calm, visibility is 900 meters in fog.
All copy, thanks very much. And the weather, is it improving in Cork?
At 9:35, the controller tells the captain the fog is lifted slightly.
Visibility at touchdown zone is 500 meters.
Okay, in that case, any chance to perform one approach there?
You are clear to land runway 17.
Clear to land, runway 17.
After 30 minutes circling the airport, the crew must now shift focus to the complex task of getting their plane on the ground.
We're good. I've landed in worse. Glide slope is coming in.
The pilot confirms the plane is lining up with the runway.
Okay, glide slope coming in.
And they're descending at the correct speed.
Speed's okay. I took control of the power, okay?
The captain tells the first officer he'll adjust the engine power during the landing.
That's fine, yeah. All the lights are on. Landing gear is down. Yes, the weather is much better here.
So I was on the left-hand side of the plane, looking out just behind the wing. And I remember I couldn't see anything, no runway, nothing at all.
The captain pulls the thrust levers back to reduce power. Unexpectedly, the plane rolls hard to the left.
What the heck? Go around! Go around!
Hang on! I remember looking out the window and seeing grass about 10 foot below me. And I knew that wasn't good. Thought I was gone. I did for a minute or two. I thought I was gone. I thought, this is it. I'm out of here. That's all's about it.
Continental Airlines Flight 1404 is being prepped for its departure from Denver, Colorado. Captain David Butler and First Officer Chad Levang will pilot the flight to Houston. The plane is a Boeing 737, a short to medium-range twin-engine jet that has become the best-selling commercial jetliner in history.
Continental 1404, Denver
Tower, runway 34 right, position and hold.
Position and hold 34 right, Continental 1404.
Runway 34 right is one of 6 runways at Denver International.
Continental 1404, wind 270 at 27.
Turn right, heading 020.
Runway 34 right is cleared for takeoff.
The controller provides the pilots with a runway wind reading of 27 knots and clears them for takeoff.
Heading 020, cleared for takeoff, runway 34 right, Continental 1404.
Suddenly, the plane veers hard to the left. The plane races off the runway at a speed of more than 100 miles an hour. It's completely out of control.
Reject! Reject!
The plane hits a steep ridge, sending it airborne. Flight 1404 finally comes to a stop 700 feet from the runway. All 110 passengers and 5 flight crew narrowly escaped death. The captain is seriously injured. The first officer's injuries are minor. The question now is, how could this have happened in the first place? Landing at LAX can be a challenge for pilots. The airspace around the airport is often thick with traffic. On average, a plane arrives or departs every 50 seconds. Each of its 4 runways handles both takeoffs and landings. Taxiways intersect the runways at dozens of locations. The airport can be a maze of stops and starts for pilots following instructions issued by controllers. Local controller Robin Washer is overseeing the 2 north runways at LAX, 24 left and 24 right. The investigation into the deadly collision on runway 24 left focuses on Robin Washer's conversations with the 2 planes involved. The answer will raise alarming questions about the safety of all passengers flying to and from LAX. The air traffic control tapes reveal that Robin Washer instructed both the SkyWest Metroliner and the U.S. Air Flight to use runway 24 left at the same time. NTSB investigators now know that human error played a major role in the collision at LAX.
This situation that occurred is a situation that no controller wants to go through. You train your whole career for this not to happen. And when it does happen, it's you can't even describe the feelings that you go through. A situation like this could potentially happen to anybody. We are all human.
After the accident, Washer left her job at LAX and never worked as an air traffic controller again. "11 tons of jet fuel feed a massive fire where a Boeing MD-87 has collided with an airport building.
Awful, terrible devastation, the collapse of a roof of the hangar, and the saucer plane completely destroyed in many different parts, and unfortunately the dead bodies. The rescue people had problems to enter a cargo building to rescue victims because the airplanes was blocking the entrance.
Some 14 minutes have passed since the crash. As emergency crews battle the fire, Lanate air traffic controllers frantically try to understand what just happened.
There are 2 aircraft unaccounted for.
Paolo Zacchetti discovers a private Cessna Citation did not return to its parking position after all planes were grounded.
The main attention was focused on the saucer plane, so nobody thought that there was another plane.
A private aircraft is missing, a Cessna 525.
Ground crews search for the missing plane. Finally, 26 minutes after the crash, they find the Cessna burning and in pieces halfway down runway 36R. It appears there's been a collision.
It's hard to believe that after half an hour, people became aware about the fact that the Cessna was on the main runway.
There is another aircraft in the accident near Romeo 6.
Air traffic controllers are mystified. How did these 2 planes end up on the same runway at the same time?
What's that? Come on.
Two planes are destroyed. A hangar is in ruins. The scope of the tragedy is overwhelming. It's soon clear that no one from either plane has survived. The crash has killed 110 people on the SAS flight, and 4 on board the Cessna. Inside the collapsed hangar, 4 more people have died. 118 fatalities in all. The Cessna took the wrong path due to flawed taxiway markings. Without ground radar, controllers couldn't properly monitor the movement of the Cessna. Add fog into the mix, and disaster was inevitable.
When the Cessna and the SAS aircraft started moving, they were both doomed. The accident was now inevitable.
28, you are clear for takeoff.
Stop!
137 people are on board this British Air Tours flight.
I could see orange flames inside the back of the engine.
Within minutes, nearly half of them will be dead. The fire in the cabin had been severe, but should not have been catastrophic. This leaves investigators with 2 questions. Why did so many people die? And what caused the fire? During a routine inspection a year and a half earlier, mechanics had found small cracks in some of the combustor cans. Since the repair, there were 11 reports of slow acceleration from the engine that exploded in Manchester. A damaged combustor can could have been a reason for the problem, but the log entry led Captain Terrington to believe that the problem had been fixed. Investigators still don't understand how a fire outside the plane spread into the cabin as quickly as it did. Believing he had a blown tire, Captain Terrington made a fateful decision.
Stopping. 28 Mike, we are abandoning takeoff.
Captain Terrington turned his plane to the right and brought it to a stop. He couldn't have realized that doing so would make the problem far worse.
There was a crosswind, a slight crosswind, from the left side of the aircraft that was carrying the fire that was burning from the fuel that was pulled underneath the left wing. It carried that fire aft, rearwards, and over and under the rear fuselage, in between the wing and the tailplane.
The wind wrapped the fire around the back of the plane and into the cabin. Investigators have discovered how the fire started and the conditions that caused it to penetrate the cabin. Now, investigator Ed Trimble must solve the biggest mystery surrounding the Manchester accident, to figure out why so many died. Investigators learn that most of the dead were not found in the worst burned parts of the plane. Autopsies will point to the real killer on Flight 28. On September 7th, 2011, just before 4 in the afternoon, the plane starts down the runway. First Officer Igor Zhevyelov is the airline's Vice President of Flight Operations. In his nearly 30 years of flying, he's racked up more than 13,000 hours in the air.
Flaps are 30.
Beside him is Captain Andrei Solomentsev, one of his closest friends.
Gear down.
Flight engineer Vladimir Atushin rounds out the three-man cockpit crew.
Gear down. Crew, we're taking off. V1 is 190.
The flight engineer watches the gauges. It's his job to advise the captain when the plane reaches takeoff speed.
The engine power should determine just how fast you get, and if it's done properly and the flaps and slats are set right, you will have the right lift generated by the speed to get you off the ground safely, as almost always happens.
Rotate.
The flight engineer called rotate, and the captain displaced the yoke to rotate the elevators up to about 10 degrees. This would have been sufficient